Hey folks, this is Fernando doing another video for the More Survivalists, keeping updated on the events taking place in Ukraine. And this video is going to be about seeing what it is that we can learn from this. I was just reading in a survivalist forum just a couple of days ago, and there was a thread started about the riots in Ukraine and the situation, the ongoing situation over there. And someone was trying to see what could be learned from that. And some of the big shots in the forum were complaining, saying, well, this has nothing to do with survival and preparedness. This is something that's happening in Ukraine. It's funny to see how sometimes people that think they know, they get desperate when reality is not following up with their fantasies. This is reality. This is happening right now. As I always say, learn from real world events. Especially ongoing real-world events. That's where you get the best lessons, the best information, and the stuff that works or doesn't work. So just focusing and fixating on fantasy scenarios that make no sense and just never happen. That's why they're fantasy. It's a waste of time. This, on the other hand, is real, and here is where you're going to be learning stuff for real. What's been happening in Ukraine, in case you haven't been following up and such, or you're not that well informed? The short version is you have the protesters that were more aligned with the European Union, and then you had the government, the official government of Ukraine, that was more sided towards Russia. It was definitely an extension of Russia. So you had the Russian side and you had the pro-European Union side. The protesters, most of the people, especially in Kiev, took the streets, and you had all these clashes with the police. You had people fighting against the police, taking the capital, Kiev, and eventually they got rid of the president. This is a guy that was very clearly not just aligned with Russia, but also very corrupt on his own right. He was a president that had been giving himself more and more power as time went by. He would be giving himself superpowers beyond what the Constitution would be allowing him to do. This is something that we've seen as well in Argentina. Look at how the similarities can be found. A president giving himself more and more power, becoming a bit of a dictator of his own, lavish palaces. He had his own zoo. He had gold all over his bathroom, ridiculous kind of stuff that you see it in Ukraine, you see it in South America, you see it in Africa, and I think it's more of the stuff you see, especially when it's so obvious and so in your face. It's more of more of the developing countries. I'm not saying this doesn't happen in developed nations as well. They just they may have even much more money and much more power, but they are a little bit more careful about being about showing that off that much. So eventually they took over the government. The president left to Russia, and the leader of the opposition was freed. There's the heavyweight boxer Vitaly Klitschko, I think he's called, that he's also a big figure of the opposition. So basically they got rid of the dictator, right? I'm not saying one side. Yeah, I think that definitely the official government clearly being very corrupt, it's a good thing that they got rid of it. But on the other side, you cannot be completely naive and think there's no interest from the European Union. I'm sure there are, but hopefully people in Ukraine will eventually end up with something that's at least a little bit more fair and not so authoritarian. You have to be careful about that, because there's always interests involved. So you see how people just fought any way they could. They were just taking away the shields from the police, clashing with the police. Firearms, you would be seeing revolvers. I saw a double-barrel shotgun being used. I think that one of the first lessons that we can get from here is that when people are really fed up, there's no government that can stop that. There's just no way, simply because of a matter of manpower. A dictator cannot rule if everyone agrees to rise against it at the same time. With just a little bit of organization, you can just overthrow a dictatorship, even with some of the more basic weaponry that you could think of. Even most of these guys didn't have weapons at all. Eventually you started seeing more and more of them, maybe a little bit of help from abroad, maybe more some police officers ended up switching sides as well, shields that got taken away from the police. But sometimes you would be seeing just going against the lines of the crash line of the police, just going after them with sticks or anything that they had, like in this case. So that's a lesson right there, and it should be something to be taken into account. And always remember that for you guys in US, thanks to the Second Amendment, you have a well-armed population in America. That's priceless. That means that whenever it gets to a point where the government becomes a tyranny, the people of America will be in the best possible position to rise against it and overthrow a dictatorship if it ever gets to that point. Don't go for this idea that normal people have no power against an army, drones, airplanes, robots, or whatever the hell it is. It's actually the other way around. A handgun in the hands of the people has much more power than all the billion-dollar military industry that a government may have, simply because it's people all over the country. It's people already infiltrated in all the sectors of the government. If the revolution is an honest revolution against a very clear oppressive government, then people will always have the chance to win. Especially in US, with the weaponry that civilians already have, man, it would be, there's no way. This is a common thing. You see some of the folks that are not as well informed, and they don't understand this as well. They think there's no chance. If the government is oppressing you, if the government of a developed nation with modern weaponry, there's nothing that people can do. It's actually the other way around. And in some cases, the governments try to impose this imaginary thing of people being powerless, especially because they know that if it happens, anything like what happened in Ukraine, is just a matter of hours or days. You cannot just resist that kind of opposition when there's, this is funny, a guy with just a chain bashing against the police force. It's unfortunate that so many people died, but unfortunately, when it gets to that point, when you have a clear tyranny, sometimes it's unavoidable. Some of the other things that we saw and we could learn from them are the use of gas masks. That was used quite often as well. Fire, here's a good image of it. You will be seeing some of these, many of these gas masks. This is an old World War II actually gas mask, even though that looks like a 40mm canister, but the mask looks pretty old on its own. You would be seeing lots of this. Because why? Obviously because of the smoke that was created by the rioters and protesters themselves, by burning tires and such. But also you had the police using tear gas. So, protecting you from that was very important. And this is something we've covered in the Modern Survivalist before. I've explained several times. I actually did a video not that long ago how air is so important. You should have some form of protection for that. And a surplus respirator with fresh sealed canisters that haven't expired. That's so much better, so much more better than going for an old surplus beaten to hell mask like that. But in this situation, the gas masks are priceless. It's a priceless piece of equipment to have. I'm trying to see if I find more of those images. You know, plenty of them, lots of them. People using face protection, face mask, and eye protection as well. How important is that? When we talk about, instead of using normal sunglasses, going for a protective eyewear, the kind of which you would be using maybe in a shooting range as well. It is pretty important. Well, this isn't actually from Russia. I'm reading right now. Thai Buddhist monk clashing against rioting police. You know, it's just a basic concept. You have to protect your air, your you know, the rule of 3 that tells us you cannot live 3 minutes without air, 3 hours of exposure, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. You know, when there's a violence going on, protecting yourself from air pollutants like that, protecting your eyewear, body armor as well. You would be seeing some of that from the images of Ukraine as well. So what ends up happening? What's the situation right now? They got rid of the pro-Russian president that ended up leaving Ukraine, but that's not the end of the story. The thing is that you have, this is a map of Ukraine. The brown color, it's more of the Ukrainian population. The Russian one is more of the blue one that you see over here. So closer to the border with Russia, you have, of course, more pro-Russian people. The problem right now is that there's a chance, at least it seems that way as of right now, there's a chance of Ukraine becoming divided, going through maybe a civil war, or at least internal struggles between these sides, especially the ones that are not that well defined on where they are standing. And there's going to be influences from abroad. Russia is very clearly intended on keeping some of its interests, especially here in the Crimea region. There's already been military action. You know, just by a matter of coincidence, Putin, or whatever you want to call him, has already mobilized 150,000 troops in just a military exercise that was already planned. Has nothing to do, according to the official Russian stance, has nothing to do with what's happening in Ukraine, but Putin already mobilized 150,000 troops close to the border. There's been reports of choppers crossing over to Crimea, especially here. I think there's an airport in Simferopol over here. This is a pretty important strategic target, because a strategic location, because it opens to the Black Sea. So this is something that Russia will not likely give up anytime soon. So there's already, you know, troops on the ground here. There's been at least one dead that I know of, that I was reading right now. Simferopol. So that's the situation they're looking at right now. A divided Ukraine. It's very, very likely. Gunmen seized 2 Crimean airports in military invasion. Ukrainian Interior Minister said overnight. Yeah, they are denying it, but these are pretty clearly, you know, Russian troops taking place in mobilizing in airports and such. So what is that you should be doing? Let's talk a little bit about what we can learn from this. What should you be doing? I think that as of right now, in this kind of situation, you will be having, of course, you will be having, maybe, let's take a look at the map. I think that the worst from a survival perspective, not getting into politics or anything like that, the worst place to be would be, you know, the regions where there's not a clear side being taken. If you are in the middle of the pro-Ukraine side, you will be doing okay. If you're in the middle of the pro-Russian side, you will be doing okay. The problem will be the strategic points that people from both sides would be having an interest in controlling, such as what we were talking about, the airports in the bigger cities here, Simferopol, Sevastopol. There's going to be an interest there. There's going to be struggling to see who ends up controlling the ones that are not decided and are caught kind of in the middle. Looking at this from a long-term scenario, there could be problems here in the capital, in Kiev, in terms of terrorist strikes by pro-Russian sectors, you know, trying to create chaos. If you're looking to create chaos, you're going to be, of course, striking in the key locations in the capital of Ukraine. That's a good chance. Now, if you're maybe in some of the medium or smaller cities spread all over here, maybe you're going to be doing okay. I think that as of right now, if I had my feet here, if I was in Ukraine and I had the possibility of getting out of there, I'd seriously consider doing that. I mean, definitely so. If you are of a modern survival mindset, you have to understand that this is a pretty bad situation to be caught in. Economically, it's going to be having a major impact. It's going to be affecting your life, and it's happening actually as of right now. There's already been a crisis hit Ukraine, slaps 1,000 euro limits on bank withdrawals. Big surprise, always happens. We've covered this many times, guys. Whenever things get ugly, the economy suffers. When the economy suffers, the local currency, the bank said that it was slapping a limit of 15,000 hryvnia on withdrawals, which is the local currency, which is about 1,000 euros or $1,400. And it's because of the record low in which the currency has plunged, nearly 20% to record low since start of the year, as tensions soared between the new pro-West government in Kiev and old master Moscow following the outstanding of the country pro-Russian president. So the economy is going to be suffering. There's a big chance of seeing quite a bit of violence in the medium, even long term. So I try to get out of there. I try to avoid being stuck in there and end up maybe like a Syrian refugee trying to get out of there 2-3 years later when you're in an even worse position. I mean, I would have gotten my money out of the bank as soon as I started seeing this kind of rioting. This was actually a measure taken that took place just right now. This is 3 hours old news. All right, so as you see all these things, if this happens in your country, you know, if you see that kind of rioting going on, please get your money out of the bank right away, because this is going to be coming. If you see that kind of instability, it's always going to be having an impact on the economy. That's the kind of lessons that we can learn from all this stuff. That's why I'm making this video. This is the kind of stuff that you can learn. It's not only just about the gear we talk about all the time. As we were mentioning before, the respirators. I've talked before about the importance of body armor. Body armor would have been priceless in this scenario. Body armor would have saved the lives of the over 100 protesters that were murdered here by sniper fire. All right, if they had the right body armor, they may still be alive as of right now. Yeah, sure, of course, soft body armor is not going to be stopping rifle rounds and such, as we know. That's not the point. The point is that all these things, yeah, if you have the rifle plates, of course it would, but having these things ahead of time before you actually need them. It's not the time to go get a surplus gas mask when there's already smoke in the air. It's not the time to go get a surplus body armor and rifle plates or whatever it is that you need when bullets are flying. That's what you do before. Same thing for having the weaponry that you may end up needing to save your life. Same thing for having the funds in case you have to leave all of a sudden. And when you see the signs like these, move, get busy, get your money out of there. How important it is. It's having a stockpile of food, as we've always talked about, a stockpile of water in case those are sabotaged or somehow compromised because of the actions of one or the other side involved. All things to learn from, guys. Stuff that I think it's important to learn from real world events such as these. Folks, this isn't just a thing that happens in other countries. It always happens in other countries. For me, it happened in Argentina, where I was. For the guy watching the events in Argentina in 2001 in Ukraine, he may have been thinking, yeah, thank God I'm not in Argentina, where there's 50% inflation in just a matter of days, or where people lost 70% of their savings because of what was happening and the devaluation. Now, as time goes by, it ends up happening in Ukraine. People in Spain thought they were so much better off than in Argentina. Actually, that's where lots of Argentines leaving because of the crisis ended up. They left Argentina, moved to Spain. A few years later, Spain was in the same situation. Eventually, things do get better. Eventually, as always, just life does go on. But no country, no place is, immune or is so special that things like these, to a greater or lesser degree, may end up happening. These things happen all the time, just a matter of life. Folks, remember to subscribe. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. Send it to our friends, share it. Take care, have a great day, and see you on your next video.